Hello once again, this is the PokerStars.net European Poker Tour, Friday the 15th of March 2013, day 5 of the EPT London main event from the Grosvenor Victoria Casino on Edgware Road. This is the penultimate day of the tournament, which means it's the penultimate day of our live coverage. Tomorrow is final table day, and once again we'll be starting at 1 p.m. Central European time, following it through to the end of play. I'm James Hartigan, joined by Joe Stapleton. And Joe, an amazing field. 15 players remain, playing down to 8. So many stories to tell.
What happened when we ended the broadcast yesterday? There were 17 players left. Now there's 15. We lost 2 yesterday. The feature table went on break. We thought we were coming back from break. Turns out 2 hands were still going on at the tables, the outer tables. 1 player went broke at each of those tables, so we're left with 15 to start the day today. And yes, James, you're right, some awesome stories at our feature table. Steve O'Dwyer was the runner-up in this event last time we held an EPT in London. Of course, we've got Theo Jorgensen, who is sort of on the comeback trail and also is looking for a triple crown. We've got Neil Farrell, who seems to be like a hometown favorite. Lots of Twitter support for this guy. Tons and tons of stories.
Plus, of course, Nicholas Schweite looking to become the first 2-time EPT champion.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Chris Moorman looking to establish himself on the live circuit. Chris, of course, has won every online MTT going, career earnings of in excess of $7 million. He's made final tables on the World Series of Poker, but he's never really gone deep in an EPT before, and he has the potential to make his first European Poker Tour final table here in his home country. A reminder, of course, that we are streaming in a multitude of languages today, all the localized streams available. You saw the names of the commentators providing those streams. Should point out, by the way, that we are live in China today. No Mandarin commentary.
Ni hao.
So hello to all our Chinese viewers on pptv.com. You can also watch in Russian, in French, in Portuguese, in Belgian, French and Dutch, and also in LATAM Spanish. Plus, if you're on the move, you can watch us on the PokerStars.tv app, available to download for iOS devices, iPhones and iPads, and also for Android tablets and phones as well. We want you to get in touch with us. The email address is nuts@PokerStars.tv. If you are on Twitter, tag your tweets EPT Live. For example, Ed, the first person to get in touch today, he says, to be fair, Steve O'Dwyer deserves this one. He should have beaten Martin Schleich, but didn't. Would be nice to see Theo and Chris win also. Ed, you're getting your Germans confused. Martin Schleich won Barcelona. It was Benny Spindler who won London. And to be honest, Benny's a tough opponent.
Yeah, Benny's not bad at all. Also, I wanted to address one other issue that people have written in about already. Martin writes in to say, James, are you going to be streaming the high roller today if the main event goes quickly?
Answer to that question is yes. Now, there is a big if in that sentence, if the main event goes quickly. Bear in mind they are pretty deep, and obviously the pace of the tournament so far has been quick. If it slows down, that might not be possible, but if we do finish early evening, we will bring you some bonus coverage of day 2 of the 10K high roller, which we can see in action there on the main casino floor of the Vic. Plenty of team pros coming in the booth today. David Williams, Jake Cody, Fatima Maria de Melo is going to be back. Plus, of course, regular updates from the PokerStars blog team. Very pleased to have Howard Swains from the blog in the booth.
Hello, James. Hello, Joe.
What's up, Howard?
I don't know how I should answer that whenever an American asks me what's up.
Oh, that's like when you guys say, you all right?
Yeah, exactly. You just sort of go, yeah, all right. Yeah. Well, I'm all right.
But also, I'm teeing you up, like if you have something to say, if you have stuff you want to tell us about, now's your chance.
It's a big day of poker ahead. We've got the wide angle there on the high roller, so you should probably start there, because what they did today, so it's a one reload, which you can take any time up to the end of registration, which was at 11:45 a.m. this morning.
Right.
And so people busted yesterday and have maybe come back today. And also I can see from where I'm sitting here, I think Daniel Negreanu's sitting there next to Victor Blom and Bryn Kenny. Now, Bryn Kenny bust yesterday, and so he's obviously rebought. Daniel was sick yesterday, so he didn't play at all, but he's obviously bought in now today. And I think Victor's between them, so that looks like an interesting table already.
I mean, that's the key thing with registration still open till the beginning of day 2. You've got players who reload and also players who didn't show up on day 1 buying in at the last moment.
And for those of you with itchy Twitter fingers, you can't vote for that table. So just hold off. We're showing the main event first, then maybe You'll get your grubby little mitts on some Victor Blom.
I think actually that's Eugene Kachelov and Steven Silverman as well. So that's a pretty
All right,
amazing
forget it.
table.
No, no more main event coverage. Let's go right to that table.
Yeah, that will. They start with a 50k stack, even coming back on, even if they register now. So they could still be hanging around for a long time. The chip leaders overnight, Paul Volpe and Vicky Corrin, had slightly more than 210,000. So that's you buy in with a quarter of the chip leaders stack. So that's not bad.
I'm pulling for Vicky, by the way. Little makeup for Vicky.
She's in a much better mood at the moment, so that's good.
Hello to Andreas, who says, you guys are doing an outstanding job. I love these webcasts. This beats all poker television. More interesting with no hole cards. Let's not get that debate started again. So, of course, live updates on the high roller on the blog?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll sort of catch up with that. It started late last night and so finished late, but they've obviously resumed again at noon today. So we'll follow all that on PokerStarsBlog.com. There's some hand-by-hand updates, and we'll also sort of check in and see what some of the players, because it's always interesting. There's some guys that tend only to play the high roller events, and they showed up yesterday. There's Talal Shakershi, who's the big hedge fund manager.
I saw him on the rail while I was doing an interview yesterday. As soon as the camera went off, we were doing the live stuff on the floor. I was like, man, if I'd only seen him while we were on, I was just going to go grab him for an interview.
Yeah, he's cool. I mean, he played the 10K 8 game and he played the 10K high roller. So he only sort of shows up for these big events. Then there's a guy, Adolfo Vesa from Uruguay. He's been in the same hotel I've been staying in. And then he's now, but I've never seen him in the tournament room. And then, of course, the high roller began, and so he showed up. Govert Mattel, Dan Shak, who came second in the 8 game, he's playing. So all these really big high rollers are there. And obviously Victor, Daniel, and the like.
I'm glad you mentioned Adolfo Vesa, because we introduced high rollers to the EPT in around 08-09, and Adolfo Vesa made 2 final tables in the same year at the PCA and in London.
Yeah.
How big were the fields back then? Were they smaller than now, obviously, probably?
Yes, significantly. I mean, we're talking about shy of 50 players, whereas now it's kind of double that normally in a high roller, sometimes more.
Which you would expect would be the opposite in this economy, but high rollers seem to be doing just fine.
By the way, talking of high rollers, Justin points out that Moorman's online earnings already exceed $9 million, so a correction on the figure I gave early on. He needs to stop winning stuff.
It's interesting, actually, because the one of the big online ranking sites gives an accolade, a little star for people who've earned more than $7.5 million, and he's the only one who's got that star. So he's obviously, but he has actually got, what's his name? Justin is correct. He does have more than 9 million, but there's no stars that go up that high.
The Mormon star.
Okay, let's get to our feature table then. Remember, we have a table of 8 and a table of 7, and we're focusing on table 1 in the main event. This is the table of 7, headlined by Steve O'Dwyer, who comes in today as the chip leader. We've got 2 British players at the table, Tamer Kamel, who interestingly we haven't had on the feature table yet during this tournament, and Neil Farrell, who's had a fair bit of coverage, and as Joe mentioned earlier on, a lot of love on social media.
Yeah, from it seems non-poker players, poker fans, and some fairly high-profile poker players seem to be railing Neil as well. And I think with the addition of Tamer Kamel to this table, there's only one player left in the field who hasn't had any feature table time, and that's Ruben Visser.
Really?
I think he's the only one that hasn't been on the feature table.
No, I think we also have not brought Daniel Erlandson or Pasi Sormanen to the feature table either. A couple of the Scandies have also been denied the camera treatment so far.
It appears that we've got the 2 chip leaders going at it on the very first hand of the day here as well.
Yeah, Kamel second in chips and sharing a table with O'Dwyer. He opened to 45,000 and Kamel called. Check on the flop. And Kamel bet 55,000 on the turn. Steve O'Dwyer raised to 180,000. Kamel called.
And that 8 is about as texture changing a card as you could ask for. Puts flush draw out there, excuse me, puts the flush out there potentially. Completes some straights.
Shruti won that huge part at the beginning of yesterday, didn't he? And that really set him going for the day. I mean, he was always the chip leader coming into the day, I think, and then just knocked out 2 players, did he, in one hand?
We'll get a look at Nick Shruti in a moment. We'll take a view of the outer table after we see how this hand concludes. Why is it always the 2 big stacks that go to war?
So there was no betting on this hand at all after the flop. So my guess is if someone had like a strong draw, like a straight or a flush draw, they probably would have bet it, unless they were so strong, like top pair and a flush draw, that they just felt like they had crazy amounts of equity.
Or did O'Dwyer lay the trap for a check raise on the flop and
And
Kamel
then miss
didn't,
it,
and
have
then-
to then had to check the turn, also possible, sure.
Well, he's got his action now if that's what he was looking for. So Edouard's let it go. That's first blood to Kamel. That was 816,000 pot already. That shows how big the, even though you'd expect it to slow down a little bit, they're still playing big pots.
Well, let's have a look at the other table, the table of 8 players. There they are. You can see Chris Moorman.
Yep.
Nicola Schweite at the far end of the table.
So Moorman's playing into Visser. Visser's wearing those headphones with his back to us and the hoodie on.
Still can't get any camera coverage. Even when we shoot his table, it's just his back.
PokerStars.tv has a video blog with him yesterday where he made this unbelievable call with Jack High. And he claims it wasn't as absurd as everyone made it out to be, but because it was a double paired board, so the Jack was his kicker. He just didn't believe the
Well, the
other
more
guy.
that I commentate on poker, you can sort of see that King High calls aren't that crazy sometimes, but Jack High I think is still pretty outstanding.
Yeah, he played it down, and he's the only person that thinks it wasn't. It was a standard call, so check out the video blog. He explains it all the way through on PokerStars.tv. There's some video blogs with some of the players.
And let's remind ourselves of the stakes here. Everyone now guaranteed at least £20,000. Money jumps when we get to 13th and 12th and 10th, and of course make the final table and you're guaranteed 57k.
We're starting to get into the decent money now. At this point, the buy-in was 5,000, you're cashing for 20. That's not bad.
And of course, when we get to the final table tomorrow, they'll be playing for the title, the trophy, and that first prize of £700,000. O'Dwyer raised in early position to 45,000. Theo Jorgensen calls in the big blind. Also a call from Kamel on the cutoff. So 3-way to this flop. 8 trade deuce with 2 diamonds.
I think the neutrals in this tournament are probably going to have to be rooting for Theo after what he's been through recently. It's amazing to see him back. He's such a brilliant player, and he's some pretty well publicised issues in the past few months.
Yeah, Howard, is your piece live? Can people go check that out?
Yeah, I'm gonna finish it off today. So I spoke with him late yesterday about all that. So we'll be publishing that probably within a couple of hours of me coming out of here.
Was that an accidentally exposed burn card? Is that what we just saw
I think it
there?
might have been. Yeah, it was an 8.
And obviously, as well as this being the comeback of Theo Jorgensen, if you like, Howard, this is also his bid for the Triple Crown. He has a World Series bracelet in Pot Limit Omaha, which he won here in London. He has a WPT title in Paris, which he nearly defended, by the way.
He did, yeah. There's another subplot about Theo too, because he's got this, and Joe will know about this from the WQ radio. His father comes and rails him when it's a final table, and he's quite the character. His dad.
Right.
And Theo told me yesterday that his dad has been texting him, and he is ready to come if he has to.
Didn't his dad get lazy or something for one of the events and didn't want to go, or like kind of
As I recall it, and I've got to double check precisely how it went down, that Theo made the final table. His father had come all the way over, but was a little bit annoyed by that because he had an engagement that night that he was going to miss. Then Theo was knocked out, missed the chance to win a World Series bracelet, was absolutely devastated as Theo ever gets. And his dad tapped him on the shoulder and said, well, look on the bright side, at least I can now go and meet my friends tonight. So, and Theo...
classic dad line.
Classic dad line, and it was only because it was his dad that he could probably get away with it. But yeah, so his dad is primed and ready to come, and I told Theo yesterday that I can't wait to meet the guy in person because I've heard so much about him.
Tell you what, a lot of British poker fans getting excited on Twitter. Greg Marshall says, come on Moorman, online MTT hero, always makes the right plays, do it for us Brits and bring EPT London home. Paul Seaton observes that Tamer Kamel goes by unnoticed, but is a terrific player and an absolute star. And then we have Neil Farrell's brother Ian, who pledges that Neil will make the final table, and if he does, there will be a ginger wig rail.
Are we sure it's Ian, or are we sure it's not Ian?
Oh, that was a controversy yesterday, right? The Nile, but is Theo playing again?
Nile gate.
So Mantas Vysotskis open with a raise to 40,000. Theo defended from the small blind. He check calls the flop for 35,000. He checks a second time with the second ace hitting the turn.
Repping an ace just got a little harder.
One of the things that Theo said, Theo lets it go. But one of the things he said yesterday was that you know, he doesn't quite know whether it's because he's Scandinavian, whether it's because he's a team pro, whether it's because he's a sort of name in the game. But no one believes he has anything anymore. And
well, the one hand we saw Theo play at a showdown was, I think he 3-bet, and then it may have gone check, and then he fired big on the river. I think it was with Queen High. Queen 8 of spades, I think, with 1 spade on board. So, I don't know, maybe it's moves like that that lead people to think he's got nothing.
Yeah, he said that he phrased it really interestingly. Actually, he said that the way that the game's changed in the time that he's been playing it is that now, if he has a pair of queens, let's say he knows that there are like 3 or 4 players on every table he plays now that he will simply never lay down queens to, and he will go broke to kings or aces every now and again. Because back in the day, you know, if something gets 4-bet, 5-bet big, early stages, you know, you might think about laying down queens. He said there are some players now that this will just never happen anymore.
I think that's starting to become more and more prevalent and applying to more and more players, not just some anymore. There's almost never do you see people lay down queens anymore, especially, I mean, if it's multi-ways and 4 and 5 bets, yes, but if it's 2 players clicking it back and forth, you're not going to see queens fold very often at all.
Because, I mean, what people perhaps don't know about Theo, he has been doing this a long, long time. He's, I think he made a final table in Season 2 in Deauville, and he was definitely on Season 1 even. So, you know, he really knows his stuff. He now sort of hangs out mostly on the big Omaha games online, but he's been doing this live EPT tournaments for a long, long time as well.
And I think part of the Scandi thing is that he does hide his age relatively well because, you know, you don't really think of him as being one of the old guys. And when you talk about people that have adapted to the game, look at Theo. I mean, he's here. He's been at other final tables. He certainly has grown. And I think also, you know, the Scandi thing helps out because they've always kind of been a little more laggy than other players. And maybe it's just everyone else is caught up to him. But he's a contender, and he's in there.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
The last 2 hands, by the way, the first was raise and take it for Theo, the second raise and take it for Mantas Vysotskis. And by the way, Lithuania can calm down now. I appreciate we did make a slight graphics error at the start of the day, but it's been corrected now, and we have the correct flag.
Good job, Super Sleuths.
I think we should touch on the fact that Theo made the final table of EPT Copenhagen, Howard, back in Season 3, and famously lost with aces when Richard Toth made a hero call when he trusted his instincts.
That's not a hero call either. I don't even know what you call that. I mean, that is no more ridiculous than Cengiz Aluzu flipping a coin and making that call against Mike McDonald. It's the same thing. He goes, I'm going to trust my instinct. What's he call with Queen Deuce?
Queen High. He has a gut shot and a backdoor heart draw, and he catches runner to make hearts and busts Theo from the tournament. Theo had aces, of course.
And Theo, like we use this phrase, Theo is shell-shocked, though.
Right.
I mean, he handles it incredibly well.
He told me yesterday, actually, that when he remembers busting from the first World Series that he ever played, and he was actually convinced he was going to win the World Series that year. It was when it was in Binions, and he said he was walking down Fremont Street after he busted, when he could feel his arms growing steadily like heavier and heavier, and he felt as though they were his hands were dragging along Fremont Street because he was so disappointed. And he said that now, you know, you still are disappointed, but you know that this can happen at any time, every 5 minutes, within 5 minutes you can be bust. No matter how big your stack is. Back in the day, he said there was a time when you'd have a stack that was big enough that you would think there's literally no way I can go bust today. You know, if you're coming towards the end of the day, he said now that just doesn't happen anymore. At any time, he knows he can go broke.
Some more raise and take it with Steve O'Dwyer winning the blinds and antes on that last hand. And of course, he started the day as the tournament chip leader. He's now second in chips. Tamer Kamel took that chip lead in the first hand of the day. Kamel not calling O'Dwyer's raise. What about Christopher Frank in the big blind?
Well, from the various stories we've heard about Frank and what we've seen of him at our feature table, we know that he is a little loose. So my guess is he'd defend pretty wide, especially to a late position raise from Steve.
As the short stack, though, does his thought process change here, or has he still got enough to do what he likes?
This looks like a 3-bet. Steve insta-folds. You know, there's certain guys, and we're getting to the stage in the tournament where when it folds around to the hijack and the cutoff and the button, it's just going to get raised. And, you know, that's a time when a lot of people are going to 3-bet a lot of the small and big blind to test that, you know, are you raising because it was folded to you and the pot was unopened, or are you raising because you have a hand?
Yep, and then that's when the person in the hijack and the cutoff thinks, well, I'll test you back and let's put in a 4-bet now and see how we get on with that.
Exactly, and I think Steve is the kind of person that will test back, but, you know, Frank's stack maybe not one to mess around with right now.
Obviously, we're keeping a close eye on the high roller, and a reminder that we might be able to bring you some bonus coverage of that tournament should the action complete in the main event early doors. Daniel Negreanu has just tweeted that he played the first hand of the day, Queens against Blom's King Jack, all in pre-flop, Ace, 9, 9, Jack, King on the river.
Oh.
So on the first hand of the day, Daniel gets it in good against Victor Blom and is down to 16k.
You got to love Victor Blom. Oh, I think we've got a shove here.
We have indeed. It looks like it's Mikhail Korotkik who's moved all in. Over the top of Chris Frank's raise from the small blind.
He was making some enormous shoves yesterday as well, wasn't he? That was his signature move.
It's his MO, Howard.
Right.
His MO. That and the gross over celebration. I am actually reminded, we mentioned yesterday that Mikhail Korotkik is on one of the feature tables, or was on one of the feature tables rather, in the grand final last year. He was on the TV table, sandwiched, I believe, between Maria Ho and Sandra Noyox.
Correct.
And before he came to the feature table, I believe that tournament director Toby Stone had a quiet word with Mikhail.
Right.
And said that your celebrations are excessive, and if you keep up that kind of behaviour, you will get a warning and you will get a penalty.
That's interesting. I watched him over celebrate yesterday, and it was and he'd actually his hand had held up. I thought it was like a massive one-out draw or something on the river, but it was just that his better hand that had stayed good through all streets then completed and remained good on the river, and he went nuts.
It's funny because I saw him over celebrate yesterday also, and he went all over the place screaming. It turns out he just had an extra olive in his martini.
We sort of mutter in the press room whenever you hear a massive over celebration that was someone's stolen the blinds.
There's a 2-outer.
Yeah.
Under the gun raise here from Neil Farrell.
Has it devolved all the way to stealing the blinds now?
Yeah.
It used to be on Blogger Row. It'd be, that was a 2-outer.
Yeah. No, now it's a successful blind steal. That usually comes from the Italians. That in San Remo, you get some real whooping.
A lot of screaming and hand waving.
Yeah, yeah.
Mantas Vizotskis has called.
Here comes another 3. No, it's flat, isn't it?
There's a call on the button from Christopher Frank.
Starts this hand with about 41 big blinds.
Korotkik has folded the small. Round to Theo in the big.
I can't remember a day on the EPT when the target is to lose 7 players. And so everyone is expecting, yep, what have we done here? We'll be out in time for lunch. But
it always slows down around like 11 through 9 is just painfully slow.
Could go forever.
I think it's worth pointing out that we never expected yesterday to be a long day, but it was quicker than we'd anticipated. And there comes a point when the action does have to slow down because the stacks are getting deeper now. There's been some consolidation. So Jorgensen defended as well. 4-way to this flop. Jorgensen checks. Farrell, the pre-flop aggressor, is he going to c-bet into 3 opponents?
I mean, this is a really difficult board to bet into without some kind of, very strong hand or strong draw. Flush draw out there, 4 players in the pot, straight draws out there.
Well, he checked, allowing Mantas Vizotskis to bet 100,000. Frank has folded the button. Theo gives up his spot. What about Farrell?
He's gone out the way as well.
Farrell gives it up too. You know, it's a lot of times you can save yourself a C-bet in that spot, which is what it looks like Farrell did when there's so many people in there. There's such a good chance that someone, you know, you're not going to get a fold all the time from all three players. And if it's just something that, you know, you don't have any equity that you can pick up, no even good backdoor draws, sometimes you just check and let it go. Not mandatory to 3-bet.
David Williams has just tweeted, headed to the Vic to do some commentary on EPT Live for EPT London final 16 players in about 5 minutes' time. Check it out. Need to inform David that we're down to 15. If you've got a question for David Williams from Team PokerStars Pro, you know what to do. Nuts at pokerstars.tv with your emails. Tag your tweets, EPT Live.
Now, do you remember yesterday when David said that he called out a big-name player for sort of angle shooting by moving the chips forward?
Yes.
Someone on Twitter nailed who the person was that he was talking about, and David later admitted to it that the person was right. So if you want to go back through and find out who David was talking about, it probably is still in his Twitter timeline. And I almost called it, actually, but I didn't want to put Dave on the spot since he obviously didn't want to say who it was on the air. I didn't want to put him on blast.
Paul tweets to say, nice to hear Toby Stone getting a shout-out. Without doubt, the best TD I've ever seen in action. The ultimate professional. And Dominic says, sorry, join late. Who's the guy who's already won an EPT? Nicholas Schweiti. He's from the Lebanon.
Not just an EPT.
Yeah,
an EPT Grand Final winner.
But also, he's won W Coop, he's won Scoop online. He's an all-round decent player.
Online results and live results. One of 2 players left in the field representing Lebanon. Again, a great event for that country.
And from what I understand, small pun intended, a big Schweiti. I don't want to say pun totally not intended, because obviously some is.
So obviously we're following Schweiti's story. We're following the story of Theo Jorgensen, looking for the Triple Crown. Steve O'Dwyer, looking to make back-to-back EPT London final tables, second in Season 8, looking to go one better here in Season 9. And Chris Moorman, of course, looking to make his first ever EPT final table.
What if he was like, you know, I don't even want to go one better. I'm fine with second. I'll just lock. If someone offered me second right now, take it.
Who's the other player who's got 2 runner-up spots then? So EPT trivia.
So what was the question?
Who's the other player who has had 2 EPT runner-up positions?
I can think of 3.
Yeah.
That are remaining in the field.
Oh, remaining in the field?
Oh no, sorry. Go on. Name the other 3.
Anton Wigg.
No, decent.
No. The other one.
Joe, just
hold on, I got it. I know the other one. Hold on. It is. Hold on. I know one. You guys talk about the hand for a second.
I can't tell if he's doing this for effect or if he's genuinely thinking.
No, I do.
Well, he had the right country, to be fair.
I know.
Anton Wigg.
I know.
Shall I give you the other 2?
Yeah, give me the other 2.
Pierre Neville.
Yes.
Yep.
Max Heinzelmann.
Yep.
Good. I would have forgotten Heinzman, actually. That's very
Back-to-back second-place finishes.
Yeah.
Berlin and San Remo.
Oh, it's going to drive me crazy that I can't. It's the one I definitely know. He's also handsome for a man like Anton Wigg.
He's a good-looking fella.
Wait. Oh, I almost had it.
C-bet from Neil Farrell wins in that pot, by the way. Martin Jakobsen.
Oh! God! Yakety Jakobsen, don't talk Backobsen. How could I forget that?
Yeah, he's not. This season hasn't been quite so good for him, but he's still obviously a quality player, and he's popping up in a lot of side events and doing well in those.
Daniel raises the point on Twitter, they should let people celebrate. That's why poker is so popular. On TV now, it seems like they have to stay quiet. It's a tough balance, in all honesty. You obviously want the players to be in the zone. You want them to celebrate. But for everyone who wins, there's someone who loses. And there is a line, and you can cross that line.
Yeah, I think so. But also, I don't know how entertaining it is seeing someone celebrate. I mean, there's plenty of ways you can be entertaining in poker without sort of rubbing an opponent's nose in it and sort of whooping around and unnecessarily. And if you're going to get that excited when your hand stands up for just a small pot, what are you going to do when you win it?
It's a double-edged sword, though, because isn't it awesome to have villains, to have someone to dislike slightly?
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're bad people, but, you know, like when Havad Khan was like so annoying and terrible at the World Series. Like, how great was that to every time he was in a pot to root against him because you didn't want to see bulldozer? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I
And I think that was the moment when people felt it across the line and that there needed to be a rule and there needed to be a penalty for what was perceived as excessive celebration, the so-called Havad Khan rule.
Yeah, he's a great guy actually as well. It was he realised that his antics were out of hand and then just turned around 100%.
I remember talking to him when he came to EPT London, and he said that he can't watch those TV shows. He's utterly embarrassed about his behaviour, but he said a lot of energy drinks were consumed during the course of that tournament, and he now will not drink any caffeinated substances while playing poker.
The year before there was a Swede as well that used to go nuts, very differently to Hevad, but forget his name now. Matthias Jonsson, maybe? I forget his name precisely, but I've never seen him again, but he used to just bellow and sort of clench his fists every time he won a pot, and that was kind of irritating as well.
Update on Daniel Negreanu's progress in the high roller. Played 2 hands. Out. Ace-10 versus 8. Lost the flip.
Daniel's been sending out a sort of lot of tweets this week about how happy he is, how great life is. He's been bouncing up and down on beds and couches, and you know, the world is fine. And I wonder if this might take him down a peg or two.
Well, I think Daniel may be rather excited about some new people in his life, maybe even a new lady.
Really?
And I don't know how much he wants out there or not, but when he said jumping up and down on a couch, I think he was referencing Tom Cruise on Oprah, jumping up and down when he was asked about Katie Holmes.
I see.
And since Daniel appears to be in a form of Scientology at this point, all of that really... Just kidding, buddy. Just kidding.
Now, our eagle-eyed producer has observed that the dealer at our feature table does have a pair of scissors, which he will have used at the start of the day to cut open the players' bags and release their chips. However, she does seem to be lacking the all-important all-in triangle. So, alas, we may have to get David Williams to surrender his own personal all-in button and bring it down to the feature table.
Has he pinched an all-in triangle?
Yes.
James, what do you think would happen to me if I got caught stealing an all-in button? Because there were 2 right in front of me yesterday when we were doing that end-of-day floor interview, and I was like, boy, it doesn't really mess up the integrity of the game if I take one. But I don't think it would really look good.
I think technically it is a crime.
It is stealing. No, I'm not saying it's not wrong. I'm just wondering what the penalty would be.
Well, what would happen is... Look! Ah, look at Toby Stone. He's on it. No all-in triangle? Now you got one. What a man. I think as you leave the Grosvenor Victoria Casino, an alarm would go off. You'd be tackled to the floor by security. You'd be summoned before the PokerStars Fat Cat and told that you're never commentating on poker again.
Hope you enjoy that all-in button. Hope it pays your rent, Stapes.
Does he call you Stapes?
He does.
By the way, Trolldeg on Twitter says it was Matthias Andersson, the Screaming Swede.
That's the one. That's the one. Well, I don't know what happened to him actually. I mean, he was quite a player as well. He was one of those early aggro scandies, and yeah, he celebrated a bit too much, but he's done very well.
I don't want to speculate, but the aggro scandies we don't see anymore, a lot of them don't have much money anymore.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's right.
A lot of them had to wait for their trust funds to rebuild.
By the way, just going back to Theo, like I say, I'm going to write this piece today, but he didn't, you know, he was happy to talk about, I mean, there's no real point dancing around it. He was a victim of a home invasion. He was shot 3 times, and so it was a terrifying experience for him. And
how many times?
He was shot 3 times in the leg.
So he's like the 50 Cent of poker now?
He kind of is. But yeah, he's well on the road to recovery, both physically and emotionally, so everything's good. And you know, he talked about that to me yesterday. He was, you know, he wasn't flippant about it in any way. You know, he was happy to admit that it was an incredibly scary moment, and you know, he still looks over his shoulder a little bit these days, and things aren't quite on these opening days of this tournament.
Did they catch the people?
I don't think so. I'm not totally sure about that, but certainly the last news reports say they haven't. But that was a couple of months back. But yeah, he was. You know, he came away for the first time for this tournament from his wife and family, and so, you know, he said in the first couple of days that was definitely preying on his mind. He was thinking, you know, that's the first time they're away, that he's been away, they're by themselves. So, and he said he played poorly as a result, but he's now this tournament's got his undivided attention again.
Well, he's raised under the gun here and been 3-bet by Mantas Visotskis.
And is this a case of no one ever believing what Theo Jorgensen has a hand?
Visotskis has certainly been active, hasn't he, early in this this short period that we've watched this morning.
And he's chipped up.
Yeah, he certainly has.
So Theo will call. He'll have to play the flop out of position and without the betting lead. That flop is Jack 5 tray. Theo checks.
Pretty dry board.
Almost compulsory to c-bet. And Vysotskis does. 87,000.
This is hand you're, going to c-bet a lot of the time, but you're happy to do it if you have, some sort of small suited ace that maybe you 3-bet with. Looks like we're going to see a raise.
Reminder of chip denominations, by the way. Reds are 1,000, blues are 5,000. Those yellows that Theo's throwing in there are 25,000 each. So that is a check raise to 200,000.
There's not much to learn from his face, is there?
I don't know, except maybe to spend some more time in the sun. And everything about the way Theo's playing this hand, screaming strength. And Vysotskis doesn't really seem to be a believer, or maybe he's just got a super strong hand as well.
He re-raises and Theo insta-folds.
That's it, go.
So a reminder that you can read Howard Swains' piece about Theo Jorgensen on the PokerStarsblog.com. Follow the guys at PokerStarsblog on Twitter. And Howard will catch up with you guys later on. But thank you very much
James.
for dropping by.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
So very shortly we'll introduce David Williams from Team PokerStars Pro, and he will be answering your questions on Twitter and on the emails. Dorothy's just tweeted to say, playing Micro Millions and watching EPT Live. Since all the women are out, I guess I have to root for the last German remaining, and that would be Christopher Frank. And talking of Franks, we have just been perusing the list of players in the high roller. And excitingly, on page 2, coming into day 2 of the tournament with a stack of 66,400, playing possibly in his first ever EPT high roller, is Special Agent Frank Calfon. Calfon's back in Calfon 12. Deep stacks.
What was the first line? He's just something with a loaded gun?
It's 52 cards on a loaded gun.
52 cards and a loaded gun.
How can you forget? Our first composition together. The first work of the Lennon and McCartney of poker. So back to the action at the feature table of the main event. 15 players remain, playing down to the final table of 8 today. Everyone guaranteed £20,000, but their eyes firmly on the first prize of 700,000. Two Brits going to war here. Farrell's raise has been called by Tamer Kamal. And Theo will make it a threesome. Jack 5-4 flop, and we brought you the news of Daniel Negreanu's elimination from the high roll. I can tell you that Jason Mercier is out as well. He's just tweeted, busted on the fourth hand, ran kings into a slow played ace-ace, got it in on the turn for a huge pot, probably could have played a smaller one. Meh.
Meh.
As long as Calfon's still in, I'm happy. Theo has checked. Farrell has continued for 100,000. Kamal with the decision. And while he's thinking, I can tell you that Brendan Kelly has very handily retweeted the Special Agent Frank Calfon theme song for anyone who hasn't already heard it. A link to the YouTube clip has just been posted with the tag EPT Live on Twitter, so you can search for that one. So Theo calls. Heads up to the turn. 7 of diamonds. Theo checks a second time.
Sorry, James, I had to dig up some props. We're going to do a little caption contest, I think, with David, so we're trying to find something silly we can all do in the photo. What in the room do we find funny? Well, yeah, he's very funny, but he would take up most of the picture, I think.
Farrell deciding whether to fire a second barrel. Oh, an intentional piece of poetry there.
Ooh, Farrell and barrel, I like it. The Farrell barrel fires again.
178,000.
It'd be amazing if we could have the Farrell barrel Neil make a wheel.
That is a call from Theo. With 722,000 in the middle.
Almost a $250,000, excuse me, $750,000.
And the board pairs on the river.
Theo's just stationed him on every street. Wonder if Farrell's just going to give up now. Farrell really giving this some thought.
I was about to ask, he is aware that Theo's checked, right? Yeah, he knows, and he's going to fire a third time by the looks of things.
$315.
Spot on, which is roughly a third of Theo's remaining stack.
And this is not a polarizing bet. This is just, I don't know, to me seems like more like one of those times where sometimes a better hand will fold, sometimes a worse one will call.
Just Theo working out if he makes the call and is wrong, how much are you going to be left with?
Theo will be left with about $500,000 if he makes the call. So right now, this is, I mean, Theo's getting like a pretty decent price. $1 million in the pot, $315 to make the call.
He asked the dealer to spread the pot.
Better than 3-1. Probably so far off here, but I don't know. This feels like thin valley to me, and I don't know why. See, yesterday people were sort of accusing Theo's hand motions of being angle shooting, and I just think he has a lot of ticks that, even when he's not involved in the hand, he does this a lot. Moves his chips forward and backward, and
How long has he been thinking for now?
thank you very much.
Minutes.
Just feels like a very, very hero-y lament.
Worth pointing out that throughout all this time, Neil Farrell's looked completely relaxed and hasn't given a single thing away.
I don't know if Theo thinks this long. Maybe as strong as a jack. My guess is probably something worse. It's the call. That's ace jack. Was it king jack? Wow. Wow. So thin value, yes. Not really a hero call necessarily, but a very close one.
Well, this is a good spot to introduce our next guest. David Williams rejoins us. David was with us yesterday, a member of Team PokerStars Pro, runner-up in the 2004 World Series of Poker. And David, what do you think about Theo's call there? Do you make that call with king jack in that spot?
About 3 minutes faster, unfortunately, which is funny because you say it's a good spot to introduce us to David Williams, because I figured it was because of the hero call, which I've been known to do in my time. So asking me that question proves exactly, I guess that was a good time, because I was very shocked to see it take that long. I expected him to have a 4, you know, maybe a small pocket pair. I could not believe his hand was king jack and it took that long. Not necessarily, I mean, he was right to think that long because he was beat. But in my head, I felt like for him to think that long, as quickly as he usually is, made a good decision. Like when he feels he's right, he's usually pretty quick to go with it. So I just thought he was debating with a vastly inferior hand, and was shocked to see his hand be that good and be that close to being good. I mean, it's just, I applaud him for almost getting the decision right, even though you don't win anything for that. It was very impressive.
Not only do you not win anything, but you lose a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I mean, Theo, he's down to 26 big blinds now, by the way.
Yeah, he's hurting.
And obviously, 15 players left in the tournament. We should say, David, that you were with us for the very last hand of yesterday, because we thought the action was going on a break.
Yeah.
And what we didn't realize is that there were 2 hands in action on the outer tables. There were 2 all-ins and 2 eliminations. Actually, we were done for the day.
As I was walking out, I heard, well, they're down to 16, we're done. And then as I showed up this morning, I saw 15. I'm like, did somebody bust overnight? What's going on here? So, yeah, I had no idea 2 people busted. Who was that? Do we know who was? We actually obviously do know, but can you fill me in on 16 and 15?
16th place was Raul Rifos. And in, sorry, 17th place was Raul Rifos, and in 16th place was Max Greenwood. And the hand histories
that's too bad.
Are available at the PokerStars blog. I just want to deal with a few tweets quickly. Rick McDonald, father of Mike Timex McDonald, tweets to say that Stapes and Daniel Negreanu are sound-alikes.
Interesting. All right. Guess I'll take it. What was going on yesterday with Mike McDonald on Twitter was hilarious, by the way. There were a bunch of people who I don't think knew Mike had been busted from the tournament, all wishing him good luck today, at which point Mike decided to sort of, I wouldn't say lash out, but at least let people know that he wasn't in the tournament anymore, at which point a lot of pros decided to get involved and also wish Mike luck.
Yeah, I've got to add Mike to my poker Twitter feed, because it sounds like some good stuff is happening. I noticed it sneaking over a peek at your screen, and I was like, how do I not have this guy on my screen? I love Mike. So
yeah, Mike and Jason have been needling each other relentlessly, too. Jason, obviously, we just read his tweet about busting from the high roller. Mike fires back, oh, man, so sorry to hear that. Jason fires back at Mike, hope you stone bubble. Crossing my fingers for you.
By the way, Luke has a question on Twitter, David. What is with Jorgensen asking for the pot to be spread? Can you explain that?
Yeah, well, ideally, he would like to know how much is in the pot, and if he could, I think he would say, hey, can you count the pot, and the dealer would have to stack it up and count it. But obviously, they don't allow that because the tournament would just slow down immensely if every hand people are like, hey, count the pot again, count the pot every street. So you can ask for it to be spread so that you can get a visual representation of how much is in there. He can look and see how many of the big chips, the yellow 25,000s are there, how many 5s, 10s. He can sort of eyeball it, figure out how much is in there so he can calculate his odds and decide if he wants to make the call.
Sven has a question for us, Stapes. He says, have you guys ever been confronted by someone who's angry over stuff you said on the webcast? Tell us about that, please. I've had threats made against me by certain players over something that was misinterpreted. I also once received an email that was 3 pages long from a player who was unhappy about one tiny comment I said in a TV show once, and again, which I think was grossly misinterpreted.
What was the comment? Can you say that?
The comment was that in his player questionnaire, he had described himself as a crazy gambler, and he made what was, quite frankly, a pretty loose call. And my comment was, well, he does consider himself a crazy gambler.
Wow.
And
Can't believe you said that about him.
That's true. And the email was only 3 pages, James, because I could have easily gone off on 5 or 6.
And here is the problem, is that the reference to him being a crazy gambler, and I'm not going to name the guy, by the way, was that he had said that he used to be a crazy gambler and used to be a bit of a degen at the blackjack tables and the craps tables and lost a lot of money, went broke and was owing people a lot of money, and now he just plays poker, which he considers to be a skill game, and therefore didn't like the reference to gambling being used in the context of poker and the fact that we'd brought up his past.
So you kicked a reformed man when he was trying to recover. That's nice.
Yeah.
He went and took it out on the roulette wheel.
So we had here a button raise from Neil Farrow, and Mantis 3-bet to 135,000 out of the big blind and took it down.
And of course, as far as Stapes is concerned, everyone must know by now about the ongoing Twitter war between Joe Stapleton and Cengiz Aluzu.
Yeah, well, it's weird because I played in the free roll yesterday. Did you end up playing, David?
Unfortunately, I couldn't get PokerStars Mobile on my phone because
Okay.
I couldn't change the store from the United States store to the UK store or any other store outside of the US. So I wasn't able to download it, which actually was pretty disappointing.
Interestingly, someone just said on Twitter yesterday, you just need to go into a store and buy a UK phone. You're baller, you can afford it.
Yeah, just buy a UK phone so I can play the free roll.
So I played in it, and there were people, and part of the reason I play is because I like interacting with the fans, at least the ones that are, like, remotely respectful and courteous. And people were asking me the same question, if anyone has ever been upset. And other than Cengiz, the little messing around I did with Cengiz, or the one time with Ivan Freitas, the little encounter we had in Monte Carlo, no, never. Everyone gets it. Like, I'm very lucky in that I get away with murder and get to make a lot of jokes, but, like, everyone, it seems like, especially all the big-name pros, they all get it. They get what my shtick is. They get that it comes from love. They get that, yeah, everyone gets it. I don't think I've really crossed the line with anyone, so I'm very lucky. But we all have a working understanding. And my line that I'm always I will always use if someone does have a problem is, hey, if I were at the poker table, you would have no problem working me for my last dime. So in my job, I'm going to do what I do, which is to make jokes and do my job. So, but no one's ever had a problem. Everyone's cool.
Apart from Cengiz Aluzu, who will make you dance like monkey in Berlin.
Yes.
This is the second pot in a row that Steve O'Dwyer's opened when it's folded to him.
Steve started the day as chip leader. He's now down below 2 million.
Still third in chips at this table now.
The two Brits are the big stacks, Kamal and Farrell. Obviously, Farrell took a huge pot off Theo Jorgensen. That call with King Jack cost Theo most of his chips.
Just a call from Kamel in the small blind.
And a King Jack 8 flop with 2 spades.
Would you say Broadway cards are a pretty big part of someone's range, just calling from the small blind?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely there. I mean, the thing about it is calling from the small blind, it's different than the big blind. The big blind, they've got, double the amount, and their range is a lot wider. Calling from the small blind, it narrows it a little bit more. You're not going to see as many really just raggy hands. So, a hand like, King High, Jack 10, those are hands that you could easily call from the small blind with here. So Steve definitely is aware of that. He's very, conscious of ranges and what people could have. very thorough in his decisions.
And you're not really going to be 3-betting those hands.
Right, those are hands that you don't want to 3-bet and possibly not get a chance to see a flop with and get 4-bet off of. So, you know, they play well against flops. They allow people who are raising in late position to go off and have value to call them down. So,
Kamel check calls for 68,000. Ace of diamonds on the turn.
Kamel checks again.
Is the hairy beast going to fire again?
he's staring him down.
And I think this is a spot where you can get some information by checking out your opponent and just seeing how comfortable or uncomfortable they look.
Yeah, Steve is very good at reading body language and sort of assessing the situation, figuring out when to slow down and when to put the pedal to the metal.
So Steve's bet on the turn is 160,000.
And one of the things I've noticed on the EPT is a lot of the players, especially since they come from an online background, have a harder time concealing things physically. And I noticed, you know, myself when I play the EPT, I see a lot more physical tells when I'm playing. I pick up on strength and weakness a lot easier here, I feel like, when I'm playing them. The aggression level is a lot higher, so it's hard to really narrow things down, but I definitely can tell when people are comfortable in pots, when people feel like they have a strong hand and such. I feel like a lot easier here on the EPT.
Running diamonds come in.
Kamel checking for a third time.
I think it's conceivable that either one of these guys picked up diamonds on the turn. Probably more Kamel than Steve.
Remember, these guys played a huge part in the very first hand of the day, which saw Steve ship the chip lead over to Kamel.
And David, when it's checked to you here and you're taking this long to think, what, obviously we don't know exactly what Steve is thinking, but when you're tanking with no action in front of you, really, what are the things you're thinking about?
Well,
is it just a matter of usually like, hey, am I going to check behind and hope my hand is good?
You know, it's tough because sometimes, when you're bluffing, you're like, how much can I bluff? How much do I need to bet to make this bluff successful?
Steve checks behind and I think shows ace-king.
When you've got a value hand, you're deciding how much, can I bet for value? What do I want to do if I get raised? You're thinking through all the possibilities so that you can make sure you don't overlook something. And I think Steve was looking at that exact spot there with ace-king. His hand was very strong, but he was like, what kind of hands are going to call me? And what do I do if I'm faced with a check raise? And what if he's bluffing and I have to fold my hand? Basically, he felt his hand was so strong that he didn't want to have to give it up if he got check raised, but he would probably have to because it would be a huge bet. So he was like, there's a lot of value in this hand, and this pot is huge. I'm just going to take it right now because I don't think there's many worse hands he's going to just call me with.
And like we were talking about, Broadway cards were a big part of Kamel's range. Diamonds were conceivable, so it's just not worth it.
Right. He doesn't want to be shown a queen-10 or an ace-high flush, or an ace, against an ace-high flush because the ace is out there, but any flush because it's just his hand is so big and it's usually going to win the pot most of the time. One of the only ways he can lose it is to get bluffed off the pot, so he doesn't want to give that opportunity back to his opponent.
Steve O'Dwyer looking to make the EPT London final table for the second season in a row. Back on top. He's reclaimed the chip lead.
You know, James, if we could go back to one of the questions from before, you know, one of the first times I was ever afraid that someone was going to get mad at something I said on TV was actually David. On the big game, there was a hand he played against Joe Cata where you stationed Joe with 2 10s, and he flopped an ace and just got value in every street on you.
I feel like I remember that.
And it was, I think eventually, you know, he ended up moving in on the river, and you called him again. And it was one of the first times that I was, like, less than complimentary about the way someone played a hand. And I was like, oh, God, like, I really hope David doesn't get upset.
I know, I think I felt the same way. I was like, geez, what did I do? I just gave this guy 50,000 or whatever it was, 100,000. I just gave it to him.
And so, yeah, so that was one of the first times that I was like, oh, man, I don't really feel comfortable doing this, but I don't know any other way to call this hand. So.
And David's just waiting for the precise moment when he can extract revenge by punching you in the ribs.
Yeah, that's actually why I've been doing this commentary here.
That's fine. I'll just suck in my gut and take it like a man.
By the way, Vicky Corrin has just tweeted an update from the high roller. First hit, ace-king against Roberto Romanello's jacks. He was a bit low, so we got it in pre-flop. No improvement for me. 35,000 chips lost. Curses.
Come on, Vicky.
A question from Mad Dog on Twitter. Will this event be recorded for television? Maybe only the final table, or is it only on EPT Live? The last option, Mad Dog. Only live streaming on EPT Live on PokerStars.tv. I don't think it's any secret that there are 2 events in London this year. Obviously, traditionally, EPT London takes place in the autumn, and for one season only, season 9, it's been moved to the spring. So when we kick off season 10 at the end of August, London will move back to October. So there will be another London event a bit later on in 2013, and that's the event that will be televised.
I'm excited for that event. This is the first time I've been in London in the spring. It's a lot colder than it is usually in the fall right now. I mean,
we got really lucky last fall. October it was gorgeous
amazing.
here. It was like the low 80s, I think.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Well, for us, it was low 80s. I don't know what you guys call that. High 20s.
Steve O'Dwyer still plugging away. I like that. Whenever the momentum's going your way, I hate the concept momentum at a poker table, but whenever you're steamrolling, I mean, it really applies. Whenever you're just winning, just keep it rolling, keep going, because it really just it just grows and grows. Your confidence grows. Your opponents see you winning pots, and they get nervous of you. They're like, I can't bluff this guy. I can't make a move against this guy. So it's good to capitalize on it and keep it going.
El Burro has just tweeted, I've just got up to hear you guys. Great broadcast. Greetings from Colombia. And Sydney has a question for you, David. What is the oddest thing you have done to get out of a funk or a downswing? Assuming that happens even to one of the legends.
Well, thank you for calling me a legend.
You are a legend. I would agree with that for sure.
I guess I'm legendary in some ways, but let's see. The oddest thing I've done to get out of a downswing, that's rough. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've just played real small stakes. You know, if I've ever had one, I've just taken it back to the basic levels. I've gone to the casino and played a $100 buy-in tournament, you know, something like that. It's not very odd in a sense of what you would think of odd, like killing a chicken or anything, but I mean, I get a lot of questions when I show up to that tournament. People are like, what are you doing here? This is so cheap. Why are you playing it? But, I just love poker, and sometimes when things aren't going well, you've got to just take it back to a level where win or lose, it won't affect me financially, and I can just sort of evaluate, see what I'm doing wrong, maybe even get an easy win, you know, sort of play with some players who aren't as tough as my other opponents and build my confidence back up.
Funny you talk about playing $100 MTTs. I remember Joe and I were in Vegas one summer during the series, and we're playing in kind of like $120, $150 buy-in MTTs. No. But what was interesting is there were quite a lot of...
Well, what wasn't interesting that David showed up is that he asked me to take a piece.
Yeah,
which was really bizarre.
But there were a few familiar faces, a couple of bracelet winners playing these tournaments, and the reason why is that they were preparing for the main event and reminding themselves what it's like to play in a sea of recreational players who can be a bit of a minefield because they don't play, shall we say, optimal poker.
Right. I mean, that's definitely sound advice. I mean, it's something to do. It's harder to do that usually because the main event just sort of finishes off after you've been playing all these multitude of level buy-ins all summer. So it's really hard. You've been playing 30, 40 some odd events up to like 25K buy-in to go really run and play like a quick $100 buy-in tournament for the main. But if you weren't having a full summer schedule, I could definitely see that being, you know, something to do to practice.
But immediately pounces on the information about the next London event this year and says, when will the Season 10 schedule be announced? I imagine there might be an announcement in Monaco about Season 10 of the EPT.
Well, they better, right? Isn't that the final event of Season 9? So if they don't announce Season 10 there's a problem.
We're all going to be in the bread line.
I can't wait for that event.
And something that was confirmed, by the way, David, before you got here by Neil Farrell's brother Ian, is that if Neil makes the final table, there will be a crowd on the rail tomorrow, all wearing ginger wigs. I'm sure anyone who saw last season's grand final will remember that there were the French and Belgian fans decked out in blonde wigs celebrating Lucille Cailly making the final table.
And I found out so many of those guys were men way too late, by the way.
So the Farrell fans are going to be wearing the ginger, and Ross Gaff asks on Twitter, if Neil final tables, will you guys take part in wearing ginger wigs? See, I think that'll be too partisan. I think we have to remain objective.
I have no problem with it. I'll do it. I don't care what's Parmesan and what's not.
You can always rely on the team clown to take one.
Stefan has written in to say, hey guys, take a picture with David, DW Poker from the booth. Guess what? We're going to do that in just a second. We're going to do a funny little picture and have a caption contest, but we're waiting for the official EPT photographer, Neil Stoddard, to come on in here and take a nice high-res photo of the three of us. So, Stefan, your wish is our command.
A few raise and take it hands this orbit. Under the gun raise here from Christopher Frank. Steve O'Dwyer on the button. He folds, as does Vizotskis in the small blind. Kamel on the big. Looks like he's considering defending.
And it's just so enticing to defend your big blind, even against an under-the-gun raise, when it's only a min raise.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've noticed is sort of a problem. There's just like this new trend amongst the high-stakes tournaments. Everybody min raises now all the time. And I myself even do it now because people seem to fold to it. But, you know, the Gus Hansen theory, he always loves odds, you know, pot odds. And there's not a lot of hands you're going to get Gus Hansen to fold in the big blind when you min raise because he's just looking at, wow, I'm getting at least 3-1, depending on the, you know, the antes and the small blinds. And I'm not folding most hands because most hands aren't 3-1 dogs to what my opponent's raising to. So I'm kind of like that too. I don't fold a lot in my big blind when people are min raising. So if people know that, they, you know, like Steve O'Dwyer, I remember we were actually playing a tournament maybe half a year ago or so, and it was my big blind, and he like 4x'd it. And I was like, what kind of insult is that? And then I realized he knows I'm calling a lot, and he just wants me to be incentivized to fold or either put a lot more money in the pot with a piece of trash hand. So, you know, it's good that he recognized that with different opponents in the big blind, you've got to open it up to a different size so you can control the pot against them.
So Kamel check called the flop for 32,000. The board pairs on the turn. Kamel checks a second time.
Frank was the player that knocked me out. So, like, I have this thing where the person that knocked me out, my chips are in their stack. I feel like they have a little bit of me. So I'm kind of watching Frank, like, seeing where my chips are going to go. Is he going to win and have them all? Or are they
Look at his ace-9 just got there again.
You know, who's going to – yeah, there we go. But my ace-queen would be winning on this hand.
Oh, yeah, it sure would.
I'm like, who's going to get my chips, or is he going to have them? I kind of watch where I go. I feel like I'm still there at the table.
A little bit of your soul is ingrained into each of those discs.
Yep.
Check, check.
Looks like king high. Oh, pair of jacks.
A pair of jacks is good and will win Christopher Frank that pot.
Not an ideal run out for jacks.
Yeah, that's one of the hands for him where he can't really bet it because he's not likely to be called by much worse. Hands that call him have an ace or a 10 in it, so it's like you just want to check it back and get to showdown with that hand and hope that you can take it down with that. That's why he sheepishly kind of turned it over because he didn't really feel it was going to be good.
It's so frustrating, too, with jacks. You're like, at least I'm beating a 10, and then a 10 comes on the turn. You're like, okay.
So, yeah, unless he had bottom pair or was just floating me, I don't beat anything.
A gloriously sarcastic question from Kenny on Twitter. He says, why do players have their hoodies up? Do ears give away certain tells?
You know, I wore my hoodie up a lot because I was cold, to be honest. It's cold in there sometimes in the room.
So anyway, I've handed out a prop. Sorry, it's not that funny. It's just what we had around. So I don't know what you guys want to do with it.
I have absolutely no idea what this even is.
It's a dental floss. It's pick. It's clean. It came from the bag, fresh.
And then it even, like, you can pop out a toothpick in the back.
So you can do whatever
really
you want with them, guys.
Huh.
I have a feeling I know where this is going to go with the captions. I'm notorious with toothpicks. So I can already kind of predict. I'm giving you guys a little softball there, a little help.
Sadly, David, for your benefit, this is not made of diamond, but this is plastic.
I'm going to put them. All right, let's
Yeah,
all put the
I'm
mic.
not even going to hold. It's not even worth me holding. It doesn't have no diamonds.
Did we get a couple? All right, cool.
Look at this three-way pot with the cutoff, small blind, and big blind.
Oh, and he's right back into the commentary, guys.
Yeah, you know, I'm always working. Steve O'Dwyer opened for 45,000 and got called by Kamel and Frank in the blinds.
So we're going to ask for you guys captions on the photo, by the way, and at the end of the day, we're going to pick a winner. You're going to get a big game box set, which will include the hand I was talking about between David and Joe Cata, and also a tutorials box set, so you can learn how to play poker also.
There was like some wild hand in there where I like bluffed a set of deuces, I think, or something like that, and I think Arcata folded a flush or something insane. Like he had a small flush and thought I just had to have.
He
a
lays
flush.
down a huge hand to you. Yeah, I think
it was like, and I couldn't imagine it. Like I'm at the end, like if you folded, your hand definitely wasn't better than mine. Thinking he would have never folded a better hand, and then like somehow find out he had a flush, I think, and I had like a set of deuces.
I think he folded. I think he folds a straight. I think he flops a straight.
That's what it was. There was like 3 diamonds. He had a straight, and he just folded to my ship, and I had like a set. We don't know. I maybe would have doubled up.
Yeah.
But I was just shocked that pot. I remember it put me back after giving him all my money with the 10s. I think that put me back even.
And I think something that they wouldn't let me say on the show, but I'll say it here, is he ends up going broke on the big game.
Me or Kata?
Kata does. Ends up going broke at one of the appearances he made in the big game. And then he goes over to Caesars and plays blackjack for 10 grand a hand and wins it back.
Oh, my God. That's amazing.
Couple of tweets. Renee says, David, you may be interested to know that Frank has done an interview about the hand in which he busted you, and he does admit it was a bad call. He's slightly sheepish about it.
Does that make you feel any better?
Oh, my God. A weight has been lifted off my shoulder. No. I mean, like I said, I actually don't. You know, I was a little bitter at the moment, but I've been there before. I've had a huge stack, which at the time he had a huge stack, and I've been rolling and just can't lose a hand and feel invincible, and somebody's moved in, and I've just been like, you know what, F this, and just throw the chips, and I'm going to knock this guy out. I'm running good. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I look at it like that. I mean, he took a chance, and I appreciate the action, to be honest. That's all I can do. Appreciate the action.
Well, Willie says, hey, David, just watch the old World Series of Poker coverage, and you talk about Marcel Lusk mentoring you back then. Are you still good friends with Marcel?
I am. I was at the table when he took that horrible beat against Victor on day 3 with aces against kings in like the first orbit. He had 2 aces. Victor got it in with kings. He had a king, obviously, and crippled Marcel. Marcel had a huge stack at the start of day 3, and it hurt me to see it happen. And usually I don't feel bad for other players at the table. You know, it's all poker, and I don't care. But seeing that happen to him actually hurt, and I felt really bad for him because I like to see Marcel succeed because he's always – when I was his opponent at the table that year, he was still showing support for me. You know, when I would lose the pot, he would pat me on the back.
Yeah, he's a really sweet guy.
Giving me words of encouragement, which was shocking because at the table, everyone is my enemy. So for someone to treat me like that, I have a bond forever with him where I'm going to always root for him if it's not against me.
From Flying Dutchman to Crying Dutchman.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking to see because you know it. Every hand means so much to him. He puts his heart and soul out there on the felt when he plays poker, and to see that happen to him and that king in the window, you could just see him melt. And he tried to keep it together, and he couldn't recover after that. His chips were too small, and he didn't double up.
Back at our feature table, Neil Farrell's pre-flop raise was called in 2 spots, and it was Karotkick who decided to bet the flop.
So I assume he'll be all in at some point in this hand.
The original raiser folded, but Christopher Frank's going to give him a spin. He calls. And Frank checks the turn. Karotkick bets again, 75,000. And what do you make of this bet sizing, David? 70K on the flop, 75 on the turn?
You know, this is, I think he's trying to be a little tricky, and I think it's the kind of spot where he has a hand where he wants action to continue, but he also doesn't want the pot to get too big. I see a lot of players. I don't know how, you know, if how good of a player he is, how much experience he has, but you see this from a lot of players who aren't as accomplished, who make plays like this, who don't bet, you know, accordingly to pot size, and you're not sure what they're trying to do with it. So Frank check raised it, and he didn't get, he got immediately called, which shows what I think is that Karotkick's hand is the kind of hand where he wanted to be called, but it wasn't like good enough to, you know, re-raise all in, but it wasn't good enough to fold. So, I mean, I really think he's giving away a lot about the strength of his hand through his bet sizing, and Chris can capitalize on that. Christopher. I don't know if he likes to be called Chris, but
Karaki really liked his hand before the river. I don't know if he can really like that.
yeah, that's
Ace of diamonds peeling off.
That's a card that changes a lot of things. So we've got a $676,000 pot, and Frank himself.
He's going to lead now. Wow.
Frank doesn't even have much more than a pot-sized bet stack left.
Look at Karotkick looking at his chips.
I mean, yeah, he's so ready to get his call in there. Yeah, you can tell. We've got a set of tens.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a spot here where I think maybe a little live inexperience from Frank cost him some more chips he could have gotten, because Karotkick was basically telling him, I'm calling what you bet. If you looked over at him, you could tell he was like ready to just, like, his hand was trembling to get those chips in the pot. So I think if you're Frank, maybe you want to bet a little more. You look over and you see that, like, okay, this guy wants to call. I've got a set of tens. I'm probably not beat here. I'm putting it all in.
I genuinely think, and knowing the kind of player Karotkick is, that if Frank shoves that river, he gets called.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, I mean, there was no
we don't know what the
thought
hand was, but I felt like Jack 10, something like that to me.
There was no thought in how much is that bet or could you have. It was like, call. What do you have? I want to see these cards. And I think if he picked up on that, which is something players who play a lot more live would have noticed, is when a player is ready to call you, punish that, or don't bluff if you're going to bluff. Like, this guy means business.
So a reminder that we still have 15 players in the tournament. We've got these 7 guys on the feature table. Steve O'Dwyer still the tournament chip boss, but there are 8 players on the outer table as well.
I'm impressed that no one has gone bust since I've been here, the rate they were flying out of this tournament.
And there is the outer table. We can see the high roller in the background. And the players on the outer table include Nicola Schweiti, aiming for his second EPT title. Chris Moorman, aiming for his first EPT final table. The Finnish player, Pasi Suominen, and the player you're interested in, David, is Daniel Erlandsson. He's Swedish.
So the reason I was asking about Daniel is he was seated on my immediate
Daniel's
left.
the guy looking down at his phone right now.
Yeah.
By the way, very quickly, Calphon
alert, sitting down at the table directly behind
the gentleman I'm asking about at
That's
the table
right.
with Todd Terry. The reason I'm asking about Daniel is day one, the beginning of the tournament, he was seated on my direct left. And we played a lot of pots together, big pots. And at one point, I had him down pretty low, and I made a nice size value bet that left him with like maybe, see, he had 15K and a pair of queens, and I knew he had that kind of hand. And on the river, I had called him like 9-10 in the blind and flopped a 9, and it came king high, and then he checked the turn back. And on the river, I bet 5K instead of 15, which he had a 15K stack. And he thought forever and finally called me with a pair of queens. And as I bet it, I thought in my head, man, that was a terrible bet. I know he's got 2 queens. I either need to check and give up or put him all in and make him have a decision and fold. And I made a mistake and knew it as I bet it. And I sat there praying, please just let me not get punished for this mistake. And finally he shrugged through in the 5K, won the pot. Had I bet it all, who knows what changes here with him. Now he's here with tons of chips.
Well, let's go back to our feature table where there was an under-the-gun raise from Neil Farrell, called in 2 spots. 3 spots. Frank, Karotkick, and Jorgensen all came along for the ride. And Karotkick and Jorgensen have checked. Farrell does not continue, he checks as well. And Frank in position on the button, bets 82,000, gets a fold from Karotkick. Decision on Theo Jorgensen.
It looks like the board is 10-10-7, if I'm seeing it correctly. I'm really impressed with my vision. Ooh, I made that out from that far. That's amazing.
No, we want you to keep making those amazing eagle-eyed calls, but you can also look there.
Well, I'm looking at what
No, I know you
I see
did
what
it.
the players see. I see what the viewers at home
I'm
see.
not accusing you of cheating over there, but just if you don't.
Yeah, I forget
wanna
that
strain
we have
your
that
eyes.
extra screen on the cat and mouse screen. I was looking at this screen trying to eyeball what those cards are, looking at the pips.
And you did far better than I could. I guess a 10 is sort of distinctive, but
When you squeeze baccarat style like me, you can figure out what a card is.
yeah,
looking at
you know,
the
I've heard
pips.
players actually refer to it sometimes. They can tell what a card is, but what do they call it? Like a
4 across
a
is
4
a 10
across,
or a 9.
that's it,
Yeah, that's a 4 across, and a 3 across is a 6, 7, or 8.
Call from Theo Jorgensen.
And this makes it very likely that Theo's going to be playing for his entire stack.
Right. I'm not sure. I mean, Theo's basically, I think, with this call is he thinks that Frank is bluffing, and he's like, I'm just going to look you up, which is dangerous because if Frank knows that with the size stack Theo has and Theo's inclination to call here, he should shut down. So if Frank continues, it's like a big warning sign to Theo that he has a hand, he means business. Because I think if Theo himself had a 10 there, he probably would have just re-raised all in with the size of the stack he has, unless he's got a monster and he's just going to give some rope for Frank to hang himself. So it's interesting to see what happens here. I mean, I think Frank...
You think this is more likely Theo calling and hoping that Frank just shuts down?
Right. He's like, I'm calling, hope you shut down because, you know, my tournament life is on the line here. And I think Frank checks behind it because Frank realizes this bluff ain't going to work, so I'm just going to abort mission. Or my hand's not that strong and I don't want to commit more money into a pot to a guy who I know is calling.
And Theo looks like he will bet the river. Tower of blue with a bit of yellow in the middle.
Looks like 150, 155.
Blues 5,000, yellows 25,000. 155 is the bet.
A little bit less than half the pot.
And Frank folds, so Theo gets some back.
You know, and that could be Theo having a hand. It could be him just floating the flop and just knowing this is a good spot to take it away there on the river.
Right, he can float the flop because he knows what my analysis is how it looks.
Right.
So, you know, if Frank is bluffing, he knows he's going to be able to win that pot. If Frank has a real hand, Frank's going to continue on the turn. He can give it up if he didn't have a strong hand. So there's a lot of you can maneuver and be tricky in that spot, you know, by reading the situation, the amount of the bets, why people would bet, and just using a little logic and deduction.
David, do you play a lot of deuce to 7? Because I guess a lot of players sort of make their bets based on like the 3 across, 4 across, without even really looking at what the cards are for like their own sweat.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, especially when I'm deep or early stages of the tournament, I get like the double no spotter, as it's called, like 0 across, where that means the card is an ace, deuce, or a 3. I get that. I mean, I sometimes go a little bonkers and then get to like the surprise when the action gets heats up. I get to look back and see, do I have the aces, which I'm like 12 to 1 to have, but every now and then you wake up with them like, ooh, baby, I got 2 aces and didn't even know it. That's a fun game to play with yourself.
And this is just in Hold'em you're talking about?
Oh, any game, Hold'em. You know, not really as much.
Because in Deuce you don't want to have aces,
no, I'm talking Hold'em when I get the
Okay.
double nose spotter. And Deuce, you know, you need one of each. You need like a couple. You need a nose spotter or 2. You need some 2 spotters, which are 4s and 5s.
Frank back in the action here, raising to 40,000. A quick call from Mikhail Korotkik on the button.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Theo with the decision in the small.
Yeah, Frank has gotten really active since he's won that pot with the set of 10s.
And here comes a raise from Theo in the small blind. 3 bet to 130,000. Gets rid of Farrell. Action's back on Frank.
Theo might think he's on kind of a heater right now.
I think he's picking up on his own heater, and he's picking up on Frank's activity. You know, a guy who's very active is the kind of guy you want to get involved with, and I think he's also isolating Korotkik because he knows he doesn't like to put chips in the pot and then give up. It's unlikely he'll put 40 in and then quit.
An ace-9-3 flop. 2 diamonds.
Right, Korotkik's a guy you can just get so much value from, at least from what we've seen so far.
Yeah, and that's a perfect spot for Theo. You've got an active player raising. You've got a guy that likes to just recommit chips to the pot once he's already put some in the pot. You can easily raise their big, get rid of the active player, get the guy who sort of like almost aggressively calls you, get in a pot with him and take it down if he doesn't connect. And if he does, you're going to find out about it right away, and it's not going to get too tricky on you, it looks like, which is what happened. It came ace high. Theo was able to lead out, and Korotkik just immediately folded. Didn't even hesitate.
Some more of your tweets. Remember to tag them EPT Live. Jeanette says, got chips, dip, and Coke. Ready for the awesome company of the lovely commentators. You are awesome, David.
Thank you.
And Stephen asks, any Spanish players in the tournament? No, once again, Spain will be denied an EPT champion. Wonder what Luke Schwartz would have to say about that. Victoria Curran tweets from the high roller to say, Dan O'Brien on my left has a lovely face, all attractive and smiley, very likeable. I wish mine was like that. I'm an accidental frowner. And Elke not having fun in the high roller. He's card dead on day 2, although it's super hard to get big hands when you only play 10 hands per hour. Zzz.
Yeah, that was driving me nuts. The pace of play at certain points in these tournaments, it's just gotten out of hand lately.
Yeah, you're not one of those guys that takes forever.
You know, yeah, I make my mind up quick. You know, if I decide you're full of it, I'm going to look you up, or I'm going to bluff you if I've got nothing. I don't waste a lot of time. It's amazing the pace at this table, even though it's only 7-handed. I mean, the speed at which the hands are just pumping out. People, no one's really Hollywooding here, and I applaud them all for that. I mean, I'm very impressed by that, and I wish more players would play like this.
Yeah, we've had a couple tanks in spots where it's been rather
Warranted.
justified. Yeah.
It's like you're facing a huge bet for your tournament life, or that's going to affect it. Take some time, but every bet doesn't need to have a stare down.
So Frank opened, again continuing to be a very active player at this feature table, made it 40,000. Theo defended his button.
Yeah, the theme of the last few orbits, of this last orbit, has been Frank and Theo. They've been in every pot, one of the two of them.
Check, check on the flop. And on the turn, Frank checks again, Theo bets. 70,000.
Yeah, it's rare for a guy, especially an active player, to open a pot and then check twice.
Mm-hmm.
Usually when they check twice, they're waving a white flag and saying, I have nothing and I'm not going to resist, take this pot.
And Frank down to 1.27 million. Theo back up over $1 million.
Theo is resilient. I mean, the guy does not go away.
Steve O'Dwyer still the chip leader at this table, and as far as we're aware, chip leader in the tournament overall. When we showed you the outer table, by the way, you might have seen some of the reporters standing around there, some of the live updates guys, and of course you can read those live updates via the PokerStarsBlog.com. So any significant hands at that table, they'll give you the updates, and of course, if there's an elimination, we'll let you know. Right now, we still have the 15 players that we started the day with. Our ambition today is to get down to the final 8. I say it's our ambition, it is our mission, it is our objective. We will have a final table by the close of play today, and those guys will come back tomorrow to play for the title. And hopefully, as it's a day off work, you'll be watching us from 12 noon local time, that's 1 p.m. Central European time, every single hand from the final table of EPT London at PokerStars.tv.
And like Special Agent Frank Calfon, our mission to get down to 8 today, failure is not an option. We will get down to 8.
Dale says, have we got any EPT title winners left in the field? And what are the odds of having a 2-time champion? Well, Dale, the only remaining EPT title holder is Nicolas Schwiti, who's on the outer table.
I'm going to say the odds are 14-1. I'm just going to go out there on a limb. I'm going to go on a limb. I'm a gambler.
You don't think it's a little better than 14-1?
You know, I'm taking all the other variables aside and just giving it straight up.
Straight up, yeah.
You know, I think everything else evens out. He's a great player, got chips, things happen. There's, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on. Probably a little better.
Jeff writes in to say, David just used the term aggressive call on the EPT stream. Is that a real term now? And Vanessa Russo used that once before. I think David is sort of using that term tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, I was kind of messing around just at the strength karate kick, how he looks so
more
big
of a
and how he throws the
descriptive
chips
term.
out. Yeah, I was just being a little humorous.
So Farrell was the pre-flop raiser.
I think most of you pros appreciate aggressive callers.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything this guy karate kick does is a little aggressive. I mean, look at him. He's huge.
Neil raised his button, made it 45,000 pre. Vysotskis defended his big blind. And Vysotskis check called the flop for 62,000. He's also checked the turn. Farrell considering whether to bet again. He checks behind. Nine on the river.
Farrell, the original raise of this hand. Also bet the flop. Nothing really developed on this board from the flop.
By the way, I've got some distressing news, guys.
Oh, what? I don't know. What?
On the tournament clock, our
Yep.
Norton protection has ended. Apparently, we used to sit back, relax, and click away, knowing that the #1 online threat detector was covering our every move. But now we need to worry about online crooks and infected software. Maybe we need to click that express renewal button ASAP.
Farrell bet. Vysotskis gets folded Farrell rakes a pot worth 375K, including his bet on the river.
All I can see behind the annoying Norton message is that there are 5 minutes left on the level. There will be a short break at the end of the level, and the blinds will go up to 12 and 24,000 with a 3,000 ante.
So those big blinds you guys see there are about to change.
Unbelievable right now, though. Even though it's about to change, only one guy below 50 big blinds. The average stack is right now 65 big blinds. It looks like that's just amazing to be this late in a tournament and have it be that deep. And it makes me just. I love deep stack poker, and I wish I was there so bad.
Right, it's a credit to the structure here.
It's also a result of how the action went yesterday.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think people were busting super fast to allow that to happen, too.
I mean, we said at the start of the day, we expected day 4 to be pretty quick, but not as quick as it was. So there has been some major consolidation in the stacks, and that's why I think today might take a while to get down to our final table, particularly as you referenced at the start of the day, Stapes, when we get kind of to 11, 10, 9 players, especially when we get to that final table bubble, when we get to 9, that's when things really grind.
Yeah, 9 and 10 is brutal.
It's weird. I mean, from when we got to the money in the middle of day 3 to how many were left at the end of day 3, 31. I was shocked. I mean, I went home, licked my wounds a little bit, loaded up the coverage at the end of the day, and I'm like, holy cow, 31 players? I was that close to 31? I'm like, that's amazing that people went
yeah,
out
that's
that
got to
rate.
make it sting a little bit more, though, right? When, if you just made it through the day.
Yeah, if I just, hung on, I'd be top 32, and then I'd have to, it's like, how fast are they busting? And then day 4 yesterday, it was over in a few hours, and they were already at 15. I'm like, what's going on?
I give you guys so much credit for playing tournaments. It's just heartbreak after heartbreak.
I mean, yeah, nobody wins, for every tournament they enter, nobody wins more than 90, or 10% of them. You're going to lose way more often than not. So you're going to suffer heartache and defeat. Even if you get second, you didn't win. It hurts. It feels good to get second at the end of the day, but when that happens, it sucks. So you're going to feel a lot of heartache playing tournaments, but it's chasing that glory for when you finally do snap one off. It's such an amazing feeling.
By the way, for all the Dutch poker fans asking about Ruben Visser, we believe he currently has 500,000, $500,000 exactly. One of the players on our outer table. There he is with the headphones, with his back to us.
And it doesn't look like anyone's super short there either, from the chip stacks we can see.
So a reminder of who is at table 2, running along the screen. In seat 1, Bassel Moussa from Lebanon. Seat 2 is the other Lebanese player, former EPT Grand Final champion Nicola Schwiti. Seat 3, Olaf Hagland, a Swedish player who made a brief appearance on our feature table in the last few days. We haven't seen Daniel Erlandsson on the feature table yet, or the Finn who came into yesterday as the chip leader, Pasi Sormanen. Seat 6, a familiar face on the UK circuit, 3-time World Series of Poker final tableist Chris Moorman. And in seat 7, Ruben Visser, who we were just talking about, the former member of Team Pro and a PCA final tableist from 2012. David Collin, the French player, makes up table 2, 8-handed, 7 players at our feature table. And a tweet from Warren, who says, I had to be at work for 5 a.m., but you guys are making this a great morning. Thank you, Warren. Andrew asked, does Theo have a history of working in a casino? He handles his chips so perfectly. It's pretty awesome.
I think that's just playing a lot of poker.
Oh, I also played one of the Micro Millions last night. It was really funny as I decided at the last second I didn't want to play it. The Zoom tournament.
Oh, I wanted to play that so bad.
And I was trying to find the unregister button, and the tournament started, and I was like, oh, no, now I have to play this now. And I just played so badly. I just played terrible poker.
What was the buy-in on the tournament?
I think it was $5.50. It was the first real Zoom tournament that they had on the site.
Yeah, I wanted to play it badly. I love Zoom. I am actually the Zoom Poker Challenge winner from the PCA.
That's right.
Yes. But more importantly than that, we've got a big pot here brewing. Steve O'Dwyer opened for $45,000, 2 from the button, and Kamau raised to $105,000 on the button, and Steve called.
Looks like this will be the last hand of the level, by the way.
So we got a big pot brewing with a rather unassuming flop. 5 deuce deuce, 2 diamonds.
I mean, we're almost never going to see bet fold here, are we?
Yeah, I mean.
And look, this is one of the times we will.
Steve must have had a really speculative hand, something, kind of like a suited connector, like middle cards.
Two green cards.
Like an 8-9 of spades. That's the kind of board where
yeah.
you could kind of float and peel one, but if you're up against it, you could just get in trouble. You hit your 9, he shows you an overpair, and you just donked off a lot of chips. So
Tamer Kamel wins the last hand of the level. 2 British players in the top 3. Steve O'Dwyer still with the chip lead. Still 15 players remaining. And when we come back from a 15-minute break, the blinds will be up to 12.24 with a 3K ante. Huge thanks to David Williams from Team PokerStars Pro.
Yeah, it was fun. I love this. I mean, hopefully I can. I don't think I'll be here tomorrow. I'm flying home, so I'm going to miss some final table action. But thank you guys for having me. And obviously I'd rather be at the table next time at the next EPT I'm at. But if I'm not, you can find me here with you guys if you guys will have me.
Absolutely.
We look forward to seeing you in Berlin, David.
Awesome.
Live action continues from the London leg of the PokerStars.net European Poker Tour after this short break.